It's time for the Craig Reed Show, the Stoned Roadie, the most famous roadie in rock and roll. And tonight we have a little bit of a special thing going on because it's Leon Wilkeson's birthday, the bass player for Lynyrd Skynyrd. And there's Craig with his dogs, Wicker and Leon. And tonight we're going to talk about a little bit about Craig wants to talk about something that he talked about on the last podcast that was had something to do with Randall Hall that he wanted to straighten out. And then he also wanted to talk about a little bit about Ronnie on the plane that he didn't get a chance to talk about. And so we'll just go ahead and get started. Craig, what you got? What are you wearing there?
This was a vest that I put on Facebook with my announcement that we were going to do this podcast, and this is actually a vest Leon gave me.
Wow, that's cool.
You can see it's the same vest.
Yeah, how'd you come about that vest?
Well, Leon lived with me back in the late 90s, and he came here. We were at the airport, and we were coming home, and I says, well, Leon, where are you going? He says, tell you the truth, I don't really know. I guess I'm going to Jacksonville, and I don't know where else to go. I don't really have no place to go. And I said, well, have him change your ticket and come to my house and stay there. And so he did. So he came here, and he was here. Oh my gosh, I don't know. He was here a couple months at least, and I took him all around to sites around here in the Akron area, and he really got along with my buddy Doyle Baird, and I'd take him down to this biker bar, the Main Street Saloon, and him and Doyle would take off and run around Akron stuff, and they'd end up in places, and Leon would always ask me get into my wardrobe and you got a hat, you got an extra hat, you got a vest, and I'd give him stuff, and he'd go out and partying and end up giving whatever I gave him away, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So he wanted to know if I had a vest, and I said, yeah, Alan, or Gary, or Leon, don't give it away like you gave my dang hat away last week. I got this in London. I kind of really like it. So next time I see him, I says, where's my vest? He's like, whoa, I kind of gave it away.
Not like he gave everything away.
Yeah, so I don't remember if we were out on the road or we come back here or whatever. And he says, give me this vest. He says, here, will this make up for the one that I lost 2 years? I said, yeah, that'll work. I think he paid a couple $1,000s for this damn thing, But yeah, it's a stage worn vest he had, but
He had them all custom made, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Leon maybe if we get to the end here and have a few minutes of time. But yeah, last week I'm kind of disappointed in some of my friends out there from Facebook that when I was talking about Randall, Barry Harwood, when they put Washington Collins together, I was Barry Harwood and Randall Hall, man, they were really. And Randall, oh God, he was such a good guitar player, and Washington Collins and everything. I said, but I was gonna get on here and say, I just said that because to see if any of y'all were paying attention, But actually, I just get mixed up sometimes, I guess maybe I shouldn't have smoked that last bowl of hash before we started doing this, That might have helped, but don't make it any more fun for me, I haven't. I used to do radio things, you know, and I never did one unless I was drunk. I always felt like I couldn't do anything unless I was drunk. I guess I'm still the same way. I think I can do everything better when I'm smoking a little weed, you know. But it is funny. My buddy called me and he goes, "Craig, I saw your podcast." He goes, "All you talk about smoking pot," and I goes, "Well, it's a podcast about Lynyrd Skynyrd, you know, like that's what we did, you know,
Among
a
other
lot,
things.
you know." So, you know, I'm just, you know, kind of telling the way it was, you know, yeah, we burned a lot of weed, you know. But what else? I'm getting kind of
Yeah,
confused here.
yeah. You wanted to clear it up about who Randall was playing
Oh,
with. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah. I got here lately. Especially when I'm in that hot bathtub, I lay in there and just sitting back, and all these doors in my head start popping out, and all this stuff comes flying out of there since I've been thinking about some of this stuff, you know. Then all this stuff comes flying out, and it's in my head somewhere, flying around. It just
It's
hasn't
cleaning out the
found a
cobwebs.
place to settle, you know. But you know, I'll get on a subject, and then I'll kind of get lost, and then I'll kind of travel around in my head till I find another door open, and I'll just run in there and grab whatever I can. But yeah, I like I said before, I'm going to be redundant in a lot of this stuff that we talk about. But you know, this is our fourth one, and I mean, you know, when that guy called me and wanted me to do a podcast with him, and I agreed to do these little short 5-minute things with him, you know, and then something happened to him, and I got this equipment and everything, and then I was talking to my buddy John Neal, and he was going, "Well, why do you want to do something with somebody else anyways? Because then they'll own that stuff, and you won't have any control of it. Why don't you just do it yourself?" And I goes, "Well, you know, God, I don't know if I can do one myself. I'm kind of like a Johnny Carson, you know, and I need an Ed McMahon, you know." And I said, you
I'm the
know,
Ed
so
McMahon.
me and Griff were talking, and we were joking around about it, you know, and he said, "Well, if I'd be your Ed McMahon, how much would my salary be?" I says, "I'll give you a third, you know, but we," so I think that's a pretty good deal, you know, but we never signed a contract over anything. So if you know, if we ever do become successful at this, I'm gonna give him a third of whatever I make, you know.
This
So
is the proof right here.
yeah, so this is a proof. So be sure to like and subscribe this, because when I was going through my thing of my search of how to do a podcast for dummies 101, you know, that's kind of, they said that's kind of like your first goal is to reach 1,000 subscriptions. I think I got close to 100 now, but God, now
But
I
back
just
to the
lost it.
Randall Hall, and who did he play with?
Oh yeah, we could. Yeah, I started to go somewhere else again. Anyways, yeah, Randall, good, dang, great guitar player. And I was talking about how he was out there in San Francisco. I was out there in San Francisco, and Herbie Herbert were Journey was standing there going, "God, where'd you guys get that guitar player?" You know, and I got it confused with Rossington Collins. That was the beginning of the tribute band, you know. But yeah, when they started Rossington Collins, they chose Barry Harwood to be their third guitar player, and I think Alan chose Barry because Alan and Barry had a real close relationship, and Alan really appreciated or whatever the word you want to use it, Barry's talent. Barry Harwood, if it's got strings on it, he can play it. I mean, that guy is amazing, you know. And you know, I guess they're the two premier guitar players in Jacksonville or whatever, you know, Barry and Randall. And both of them are really good friends with Alan. And when they did the Rossington Collins project, they chose Barry to fill that position, I guess, because I don't know why, because then when they did the Alan Collins or the Alan Collins thing, Alan picked, well, he had both Randall and Barry in the Rossington Collins project. And then when they converted over, and then when Alan couldn't do the tribute band, he chose Randall over Barry to play his part. And I guess, I don't know, maybe he thought Randall played more his style or whatever, because Barry's got a different style, you know, like Ed had or like Steve had or whatever, you know. But I don't know. Anything I would say about that would just be my opinion, my speculation of what went on. But yeah, Randall was not in Rossington Collins. So I was telling Griff today, I said, you know, I got to get on there and clarify some of this stuff, because I was watching I watch a lot of podcasts, you know, and a lot of these podcasts, and I don't want this one to be like that, because you guys are tuning into this thing to hear me tell Lynyrd Skynyrd stories, and you're not tuning into this for me to describe how to start a podcast, because, you know, I hate that when I see something advertised, you know, and I want to watch it, and then they get on there and they don't talk anything about what the title says they're going to talk about. So I don't want to do that, but I just want to kind of, because that's the one we did, I was kind of like qualifying myself to why I'm qualified to do this, and my history through Lynyrd Skynyrd from late 1973 up until late 1977. I was right there with the original band, and then I did Journey and Foreigner, and then I went back to the Rossington Collins project in 80 through 81, 82, and then I think at the end of 83 is when Alan took off, but that only lasted like a year or so. And, you know, and then I started back with the Skynyrd people in 87. So I've basically been there with them for the last 45 years. When I retired in 2006 from the tribute band, I came down with hepatitis C and the medication and the drinking and everything else goes on with being on the road. Just didn't agree with me. So I kind of left that situation and kind of just retired and came back here and, you know, and started working a little bit with a union and stuff like that. But yeah, that's, now where are we going to go?
Well, yeah, the other thing too was, last podcast that we had, we were talking about the plane crash, and that's going to be something that we're never going to not talk about, because there's going to be things that crop up, and we're going to have guests on that were on the plane, and we hope to get as many as we can and continue talking about it. But we don't want to like put forth a whole lot of discussion in one podcast about that. But you were wanting to mention something about Ronnie, what Ronnie said to you when you you know, when you were what your thoughts were about getting on the plane. And
okay, hold that thought. Yeah, we're going to be revisiting a lot of the stuff we talk about. We're going to revisit a lot of it, you know, because there's a lot of things that I'll start out something that we did in the very beginning that we'll go somewhere else, and then we're going to have to go back and to the beginning and kind of explain where that all came from. So we're going to kind of revisit the past in and out and all this stuff. But yeah, Ronnie asked me either in Greenville, might have been, I think it was in Greenville, because when we got to no, it wasn't Greenville, it was in,
was it Lakeland?
Lakeland. It must have been the one before.
Yeah, Lakeland is where.
Yeah, in Lakeland, it must have been in Lakeland, because in Greenville we were also burnt out. You know, we didn't have time to discuss anything, but me and Ronnie were standing about outside when we were loading luggage, and he just said, "Craig, are you afraid to fly on this plane?" You know, and I was, you know, I was still kind of been drinking and stuff, you know, and I was just like, you know, Ronnie, I'm not really afraid of anything, you know. I mean, so I don't remember how I exactly put it, and I just said, no, I'm not really not concerned with it, you know. When it's your time to go, it's your time to go, or whatever we said, you know. And he goes, yeah, we just kind of agreed to that, but I kind of feel bad about that now, because if I'd have kind of said, you know, yeah, Ronnie, I'm not comfortable with this, you know. But from what I understood about that plane, it was a real safe plane. And I mean, as long as it had gas in it, we could
Yeah,
maneuver it. It would
that's a
fly
good
on one
point.
engine or whatever. So, you know, I wasn't that concerned, but I didn't know that the pilots weren't going to put gas in it. I mean, you'd be afraid of any plane if the pilots didn't put gas in it, you know. But the flames and all that didn't bother me. But you know, Ronnie asked me if I was afraid to fly on the plane, and I kind of said no, I wasn't. So I don't know if that had anything that because he was pretty insistent on everybody getting on that plane and flying, you know. So I kind of feel bad about that, you know.
And like, what do you remember was the last conversation you had with Ronnie? Um, that you know was the last conversation with Ronnie. Do you remember?
No, no. The last vision I have of Ronnie were when we were playing cards and we were going to go down. And this is going to be kind of controversial because there's people that have different opinions on this. But Billy walked to the back of the plane where we're playing cards, and we're still playing cards. And Billy he's trying to figure out where to sit where he can, if we crash, uh, he'd be safer, you know. So he came back to the card play where we're still playing cards, and I asked us if one of us if we want to change seats with him, and we didn't want to get up. We're still playing cards, so we just said no, you know. But I don't think we thought, because we were flying down that I don't know what we thought. We weren't on our right minds. I wasn't, anyways. But then Ronnie came back to the back of the plane. We're sitting there playing cards, and that look that in Artemis's movie, where Ronnie looked down at Artemis, I swear to God, that is the same look that Ronnie gave me exactly. It was just like deja vu, like, whoa. You know, he looked right down at me just like that. And I thought he was going to ask me to change seats, which I would have immediately, you know, but he didn't. He just looked down at us and didn't say anything and just walked to the front of the plane.
Do you think? What do you think was on his mind with that look? What was kind of a look?
I don't know. It was like a look like, you know, you're here because of me, and I'm fucking sorry, you know. I mean, you know, I didn't make a good decision or whatever, and you know, we're just gonna have to live with it or whatever. I don't know. It was just that same look. I don't, you know, it was just kind of chilling, really.
Yeah, well, you know, that's your account. That's, you know, what you remember.
That's
So
what I
that's,
remember. You know, other
yeah.
people remember things differently. I don't know. When we get Kenny Peden on here and
Mark Frank.
whoever, well, yeah, and Mark Frank, and if we can get some of the other people, um, you know, to tell their side, that's kind of the whole situation, you know, like when last week when I said something about the kid, the son of the rescue worker, said that she was holding Steve in her arms and he was going, I'm cold, I'm cold, I'm cold. You know, you kind of went, boy, that might raise some controversy because he was supposed to have died on impact. And then that same lady said that Ronnie was alive, you know, so that kind of, you know, I guess if we find the lady, but you know, if somebody was 40 years old when that plane crash happened, they'd be 85. They'd be 85 years old now. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you know, I was 26. I'm 71. You know, so
And you know, we
you
were
know,
talking about earlier, we were talking about things that you might say that had to do with other people and how it might upset people and things like that, you know, but that's, you know, and what you were telling me was, you know, that's what those guys did, you know, and it's common knowledge to the people that knew them. So it's not really hurt anything. I
no,
guess
it's like
people
like
want to know, you know.
things with Alan. Everybody knows Alan was wild. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, just wild. And he did a lot of crazy stuff, man. And for me to sit here and not acknowledge that, you know, people will go, well, he's holding back. You know, we all know about Alan and his problems with drugs, and he, you know, he wrecked a car and all this. And whatever I say about Alan, his children already know. You know, I mean, Amy, he didn't hide that from those girls, and they know how their dad was. And you know, anything. I mean, Amy, when last time I saw Amy, she was on stage somewhere. She was walking off stage. That was when Alan was in that wheelchair, and she was getting introduced. And she walked off stage, and she grabbed me. She said, "My daddy loved you," you know, and that was pretty special. But
Yeah.
yeah, and Billy, same thing. I mean, they're all dead. You know, I mean, Alan died 90, 11,
Yeah.
12 years ago. Billy died, what, 9, 10 years ago? I mean, when he was home and the band was out on the road and he was at home, it was obvious that there was a problem, you know, and it was drinking, you know, and I mean, for me to sit here and talk about it shouldn't upset anybody. Everybody knows. And same with Leon, you know. He was sent on. So was I. They sent me home for drinking. You know, it didn't do any good. And it doesn't until you want to quit. Finally, I quit everything. Oh, about 5, 6 years ago, when I finally realized that everybody has 2 lives to live, and your second one starts when you finally realize you really only have one. You know, so yeah, I'm try to keep you know, everybody's dead. I mean, everybody that I partied with in that band are dead.
And for, you know, just if you think about it, going through a plane crash, that could turn you into an alcoholic, you know. I mean,
Oh my
just that
God,
alone. I
yeah.
mean, you know,
It
so
was like the last thing I told you, you know, when I got in the car with Leon's dad, the first thing I said was get a bottle of whiskey. And oh yeah, I was a drunk. Oh yeah, after that crash, I wasn't doing very good when I was 26, you know, with my alcohol and stuff. And yeah, after that crash, I was turned into a stone cold alcoholic. I think all of us did. You know, it was pretty devastating, you know. I
probably
think all
before
of
the
us did.
crash, everybody, you know, you guys were happy drunks. After the crash, unhappy drunks, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
don't know. I don't know. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, you know. Lots of
well,
them.
you seem to be on the right road now, you know, and you were the other thing you were talking about was, you know, there might be a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people that hate Craig Reed, you know, because comments that you make on Facebook, you know, and
Well, yeah, I expect to get a lot of negative comments on here because I know I've made a lot of people upset with me, telling them about their physique.
well, why don't you explain that, Craig? That the whole thing about that you know, you're in your opinion. I find
You
it
know,
kind of
like
comical
I just
myself.
said, man, we were all going through a bunch of stuff, and I was always real thin. You can look in all my pictures. I was always real thin and stuff. And right after I left the band in 2006, even before that, I remember I went clothes shopping and I was buying clothes that were bigger than I normally think. But yeah, when I came home off the road, I was taking all kind of medicine and stuff, and it really bloated me, and I just started gaining weight and gaining weight, and it got away from it just totally got away from me. And what was weird is I didn't see it. You know, I got up to 235 pounds, and I just didn't see it. I didn't see myself as well. I can't say that because when I would go to work, I had a bad, yeah, I had a bad back because I was so damn big. I had sleep apnea. Luckily, I've never had high blood pressure. I eat pretty good, but you know, back then when I was drinking, I had to eat bread, you know, to go to to, to sop up all the alcohol. You know, when you're a drunk, you just I did anyways. I had to, you know, eat. You know, you drink oil and stuff so it don't go in your stomach so quick, and you eat bread and mashed potato, all that crap that's not no good for you, you know. But everything, you know, it's
So what was the heaviest you got? 235? Is that what it was?
235. I was 154 pounds this morning, but I've been doing a lot of sitting in a hot tub and sweating. So I maintain around 160. So I lost 80 pounds, you know, and when I was 235, I was miserable. I was 65 years old. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't ever think I could get to the weight that I was when the plane crash happened, but that was my goal. And I'm thinner than that. I was 157 in the plane crash. But like I said, I've been sweating a lot in the tub, so I'm down on my water weight. So I'll level out again about 160, you know. But
And then talking about, you know, Billy and Leon, you know, those guys, and Alan, and the drinking, and you know, and the smoking. That's another thing that you know that you don't find too favorable is people smoking. So I know you
well,
like to
all my
address that.
friends that you know, I've got a couple of friends, you know, that I tried to get to quit smoking for years and years and years, and finally they quit. You know, they have cancer, they have COPD, and you know, everybody. I mean, smoking is the number. Obesity is number one. We're going through a obesity epidemic, but nobody wants to hear that. And then smoking is the second most premature thing that will kill you there is, and then drinking, and then drugs. I think that goes in that order. You know, but all of it's just it's not necessary. I'm one to talk. I did it all, you know, and
Well,
if I wouldn't,
you've seen what happens, though.
I wouldn't have experienced what I experienced hadn't I gone through all that with them because they were doing it. And if I wouldn't have been doing it, like Gene Odom didn't do that stuff, so he didn't see the stuff I saw because he stayed away from that, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So he didn't see that, you know. So that's what I was saying. If you want the scoop on the real Lynyrd Skynyrd on the inside, you know, I'm pretty much all that's gonna tell you because you know Clayton Johnson, he saw a lot of this stuff. Not that he did it or anything, but he lived with Gary and all and everything, you know. So he wasn't involved in all that heavy stuff, but he was around and he saw it. But he's not interested in getting any of this, and neither is Kevin Elson. And Kevin was there around a lot of stuff because he was invited places too, but Kevin didn't partake in any of that other extracurricular stuff, so he wasn't, you know, in some of the places I was. But those are the only two other people that could actually tell you what was going on. Ron Eckerman's dead, and Chuck Flowers is dead. Raymond Watkins is dead. Joe Barnes is still alive, and I'm hoping that Joe Barnes will get on here and give us, enlighten us on some stuff that I can't answer, like the amplifiers. But you were telling me people want to know about the amplifiers, and I was telling you I didn't do a lot of work on the amplifiers. That was Joe Osborne, who's dead, and Joe Barnes, and I knew how to. They turned up the bias. You know, we would keep the tubes new, and they could turn up the bias, and you get in there and you take it down and you turn one of them little screws in there about an eighth or a quarter of a turn, and that's how you do it. But I don't even remember how to do that anymore, you know?
Yeah.
But
we had one guy, he asked a question, and I try to get questions to you, and we were talking, he was wanting to know, because last week you were saying, or last podcast, you were saying that Ronnie only wanted the limited amount of guitars, and I think you said it was 10. And one gentleman, he was asking about you know, the fact that that some of the guys seem like they would have had more guitars than you know what they really did. So is there anybody that, you know, like that they really needed more guitars? You know, I know
Alan, I think Alan had 3, and Steve, I believe, had 2, and Gary had 2, and Leon had 2. But Alan's third.
Steve was the question.
I think Alan had that 55 Les Paul Tobacco. I think he had that then, and then he had the Strat, and then he had the Explorer, and I think he even had the Thunderbird out with, or the Firebird, or the Firebird, because he used the Firebird. I think he had that on the road, but I don't think we ever took it out of the case. It was kind of like a spare, but I only took care of 10 guitars.
And Steve had a Les Paul and a Strat, and you said if he needed another one, something broke, he would borrow it from Alan, right?
I guess that would be the scenario if he needed it, because Alan didn't play that Strat much. So I guess if Steve had come into a song when he needed a Strat, he'd play Alan's. I don't.
So yeah, that probably answered that question.
45 years ago. I don't remember the comment.
And that's why we need to get Joe Barnes on.
I just remember. Well, Joe Barnes wasn't there with Steve, and he wasn't on the crash.
Right.
Yeah, him and Ronnie got into a confrontation, and Joe got more or less thrown off the plane.
Yeah,
after he got a big old
almost thrown off while it was in air.
That was crazy.
Yeah, Ronnie wanted to throw him out of the door while they were flying.
That was crazy.
I've actually spoke to him about that in person, and he's not real happy about that night.
I think Ronnie tried to open the damn door when the plane was still in the air and throw him out.
He drug him down the aisle.
I think we had to, I don't know, maybe it was just an act, but he sure damn acted like he was going to throw him out of the plane.
And it was all over a portable bar, right, Craig? A portable bar?
Yeah. Dean had a bar, you know, it was made out of wood, and it was kind of shitty, you know, it was just wasn't really roadworthy, and we put some wheels on it and stuff, but it kind of got torn apart. And Joe just kind of said, heck with it, I ain't dealing with this anymore. And he took the wheels off of it and just left it behind in a loading dock somewhere. And Dean says, where's my bar? I says, well, Joe got rid of it. And Ronnie went, and Dean was kind of upset about it, went back to Ronnie and said, hey man, damn Joe destroyed my bar. And Ronnie called for Joe to come back and talk to him, and Joe went back there, and I guess Joe said something Ronnie didn't like. Oh, hell broke loose. Yeah. Well, Dean and Ronnie were really close. Dean was like me. He was close with everybody. You know, me and Dean were like, we were like, I don't know how to explain it. We were like band members, me and Dean were. And I think Dean even roomed with Ronnie, and just, if Ronnie wanted something, he just had Dean go do it,
Yeah, we'll have to on another podcast get down to what exactly Dean's job was and how he came about, because we're getting close to running out, believe it or not. Do you have anything more on Leon Wilkeson that you wanted to talk about? Because you said you wanted
we'll
maybe...
just leave it at that. That was just something I was going to say, and it just slipped my mind. No. What it is that we advertise this as information on Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I'm sorry that we're talking about starting up this podcast, but we're just starting this, and they say you're supposed to do 12 of them before you kind of really figure out what you're doing. So we just said, hey, we're just gonna, just like today, this is the fourth one we've done, and we just say, okay, let's just turn it on, let's just roll with it.
We just click record and just start. We don't plan anything.
And then when it gets to the end, we listen to it and see what we said. Like the last time I went, oh well, and we're not gonna edit none of this stuff out. We just go without an edit and blah blah blah, and we do the next one, we'll look at it and say, hey, I said the wrong thing back there, sorry, but we're just, I get confused about stuff, and shit's gonna happen.
That was a long time
see all
ago.
These other podcasts where they'll do it, and then they'll go back and they'll take out all their outtakes, and then they'll make a thing about all the outtakes. We're just gonna let them fly.
We don't have any.
People say, why don't you write notes and stuff? I tried to write notes, and I end up with a damn page full of notes, and I can't figure nothing out. So we're just gonna keep this like me and Griff talked about when we get on the phone, and we're just not trying to come up with questions and stuff. When we just let it fly, we talk about some really cool stuff. I kind of put it in the same situation as a band going into a studio, and they don't have any idea what song, they don't have any songs, and they're sitting there in the studio going, we got to come up with 8 songs, fast. And I just don't think that kind of songwriting is beneficial for good material. Good material comes when it just comes spur of the moment. You're sitting on the toilet and you're going,
right,
wow, that's a good idea. Let me write that down.
Or you're in the bathtub.
Wipe my ass, but I hope you don't forget. But that's where the inspiration comes from. It just comes from naturally. If you go into a place and say, okay, I guess it's the same with anybody, like somebody writing a book or something. They say, okay, it's time for you to write a book, and you have no idea what you're going to write about, and it's not as good as if you think about things and just let them simmer, But, we're just, there's stuff rolling around in here, man. I just don't know where I'm going to end up, but there's a lot of stuff in there bouncing around. It just hasn't found a place to, and I hope I can bring it to the surface. But, if you like this thing, hit like and subscribe so we can get to 1,000.
So I can get my third.
That's what the Dummy 101 podcast book says. Get to 1,000. So get us to 1,000. Well, and then maybe we can start sending Griff some money out of my. He get a third out of my.
Before we wrap it up,
But one other thing I wanted to say, people say,
you see that light, Craig?
Yeah.
Me and Craig came up with this thing here, and if you see that space shuttle back in the back there, those are the main engines lighting up. And if I need to ask Craig a question, I don't want to interrupt him, I just hit that main engine. Or if we're running out of time. You got something you want to say, Craig?
God, I forgot.
How about Donnie and Johnny with that?
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that was pretty special. Yeah, I like the way they got with
Sweet Florida. That
going. I
was
like
that,
that
that
guy.
was
He's pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah, yeah, that was pretty neat.
And they even
I like that.
mentioned Brandon in there. That was really it's a great song because it is patriotic, and I'm a conservative, and those guys they let him have it. So I enjoyed that song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you can put up with our current president bumbling and babbling around on a microphone, you ought to be able to put up with me until I figure out what the hell I'm doing. He's been doing that for 50 years. He still don't know what the hell he's doing.
And he's getting paid a lot of money for that.
Yeah, if you can put up with his babbling and craziness, you ought to be able to deal with mine. But, I don't want to waste your time on here. And we advertised we're going to talk about Lynyrd Skynyrd, and we're gonna get more into that. I just kind of have to clarify some of the things. Oh yeah, I told you about the guy I was watching that was supposed to be a lawyer, and he was talking about he was going to talk about the lawsuits, and I started listening to the beginning of it, and it was this guy mumble jumble, so I get to the middle of it, and the guy's talking about how Ed King wrote the words to Southern Man, and he wasn't even a Southerner, and Ed King was in, and Ronnie used to mess with Ed, and Ed was a bad boy because he was in the Marines,
Oh yeah, that makes
it was
it
Artemis that was in the Marines, and the song what wasn't Southern Man, it was Alabama, and Ed didn't write the lyrics to it, and then he also said that our road manager used to carry $250,000 in a briefcase in case we tore up the hotels. He could just pay them off. And I'm going, where did that? This guy's like a lawyer sitting in this real nice office trying to tell a Lynyrd Skynyrd story, and I'm going, where in the hell did he come up with this stuff, man?
That's how all that information gets mixed up.
All the people that tell stuff about Lynyrd Skynyrd and all these stories and stuff, and they use my videos to tell their story, and then they don't know what the hell they're talking about, So I just want people to know that I'm the real deal, and I'm not just one of them people out there just talking off a hearsay. I was actually there, so I get, it gives me a little
Craig,
credibility.
Look, it's time to go.
I talk to you. All right. See you next time. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Podcast number 4. It's a wrap. Here we go. Cut.